This is obviously something he did not want to happen on his property. He's very upset about that.
What if everything you were told was a lie from the one person you trusted most? In 2015, a late-night emergency call brought law enforcement to a Florida apartment complex. A man claimed his vehicle had vanished, with someone incredibly important still inside. But as investigators started piecing things together, the details began to unravel. The man at the center of it all kept repeating one story, but the truth? It pointed in a completely different direction. So what really happened to 2-year-old Lonzie Barton? To understand how this case unfolded and the shocking truth behind Lonzie's disappearance, we have to go back to the beginning. Lonzie Aaron Ray Barton entered the world on October 17, 2013 in Jacksonville, Florida, the son of Lana Laura Moore and Christopher Barton. Though Christopher raised him as his own, biology had other plans, a fact that would surface later. The couple, married in 2009, eventually separated, their union dissolving not long after Lonzie's birth. Lana worked as a dancer at 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐳, a local club, where she crossed paths with William Reuben Ebron Jr., a frequent patron with a reputation for supplying more than just applause. Their connection, fueled by shared habits, quickly turned romantic. Soon, Lana and her children, including Lonzie and his sister Lily, moved into Ebron's apartment, a decision that, in hindsight, carried a tragic irony. After all, few life choices are as precarious as trusting a man whose idea of courtship involves both drugs and dollar bills. Lana's family had long been aware of her struggles with addiction and her tendency to rely on relationships for stability, even when they brought more chaos than comfort. So when she moved in with Reuben shortly after meeting him, it was, unfortunately, no surprise. Her pattern of seeking companionship, regardless of consequences, had become predictable, a cycle that now included her children.
But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to my amazing viewers and subscribers. Your support through likes, shares, and comments means the world to me. Your engagement helps make these stories even more meaningful. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. On the night of July 23, 2015, Lana left for her shift at 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐳, leaving Reuben to watch Lonzie and Lily. But when he was supposed to pick her up hours later, his call to 911 took an odd turn. 911 operator. Jacksonville 911. What's your emergency? Reuben. Yeah, my car got stolen. A 95 Honda Civic. Operator. Do you know who took it? Reuben. Nah, man, it was just gone. Bright orange, hard to miss. Operator. Was it towed? Reuben. Nah, not that fast. And, my kid's in the back seat. Operator. Wait, your kid is in the car? Reuben. Yeah, I just ran inside for a second to put on a movie, came back out, and poof, car's gone. Operator. So you left a child alone in a running car? Reuben. I mean, it was just real quick. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Few things say responsible guardian, like leaving a toddler unattended in a vehicle while you queue up a film. But as the call continued, the story only unraveled further. Reuben claimed he had loaded both children into the car to retrieve Lana from work when he realized he'd forgotten something inside. As he rushed back, Lily, unsettled by the darkness, followed him, leaving only Lonzie in the vehicle. By the time Reuben returned, his orange Honda Civic was already pulling away with the toddler still inside. His attempt to chase it failed, prompting him to call 911. Though investigators noted the oddity of him needing to retrieve his phone if he was supposedly on his way out. Further suspicion arose when Reuben referred to the boy as Aaron rather than Lonzie, a small but telling slip. Police arrived swiftly at the Ravenwood Apartments and located the abandoned car within 20 minutes, just blocks away. The missing child, however, was nowhere to be found. It was the kind of vanishing act that would be impressive if it weren't so horrifying. Like a magic trick where the rabbit not only disappears, but takes all credibility with it. Well, authorities alerted the public about Lonzie's disappearance, and within hours an Amber Alert was activated. By late morning, the search intensified. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, checking for security footage that might reveal the toddler's whereabouts. Christopher, still legally recognized as Lonzie's father at the time, was questioned but quickly cleared after providing a verifiable alibi. Meanwhile, search teams combed nearby waterways and detectives interviewed residents, hoping for any lead. A $10,000 reward was announced for information, proof that even in tragedy, people still believe money might tempt the truth out of hiding. The search continued, methodical yet increasingly grim, as hours passed with no sign of the missing boy. Detective, you said you saw your car turn left on Old King Road. Did it go any further? Ruben, nah man, that's all I saw. Just left and gone. Detective, was Lonzie secured in his car seat? Ruben, yeah, strapped in tight. Kid couldn't get out. Detective, you're sure? His mother says he's never unbuckled himself. Ruben, I mean, maybe it was a seatbelt. I've only known him a few months, but I swear I've seen him wiggle free before. The shifting details did little to inspire confidence. Ruben's memory seemed as unreliable as a car seat with a toddler determined to escape. Yet with each contradiction, the investigation only grew murkier. At this stage, both Ruben and Lana were providing information to investigators. However, a deeper review of Ruben's background raised several red flags. His record included prior convictions related to domestic incidents, theft involving a vehicle, and armed robbery. Moreover, a restraining order had previously been issued against him by a former partner, who had accused him of ongoing harassment and physical aggression even after their relationship ended. This wasn't the first time she'd taken legal steps either. It was actually the third instance of such a filing. Other reports showed a troubling pattern. In one case, he had allegedly a family member of his ex. Authorities also documented an incident where he had reportedly tried to take his own child without consent. Then, 2 months before Lonzie's disappearance, officers had been called to Lana's residence following a complaint about noise. Upon arriving, they encountered Ruben, Lana, and another individual, all found with multiple controlled substances. At that same scene, Ruben was said to be carrying several $100s in cash, which led officers to believe there might have been more going on than just a noisy evening. All three individuals were taken into custody that day. Shortly after, Lana lost her housing, and she, along with her children, ended up moving into Ruben's place, a decision that, in hindsight, may have been the worst housewarming ever. As part of the legal conditions tied to Ruben's release, he had been ordered to avoid any contact with Lana. But given that they had been living under the same roof when Lonzie vanished, authorities determined that this restriction had clearly been broken. He was quickly taken into custody for violating his bond. Meanwhile, the nature of the case was shifting. Officers were beginning to believe they were no longer searching for a lost child, but rather trying to uncover what had led to a far more tragic outcome, with Ruben at the center of their suspicions. The investigation pressed forward, and with it came new charges. Ruben was formally accused of both child neglect and providing false information to law enforcement. The turning point came when a nearby business handed over security footage that directly contradicted his initial claims. His version of events, particularly the one where his car was allegedly stolen with Lonzie inside, was now falling apart. The footage revealed Ruben had driven his car to the same location where it was later discovered by police. He was then seen leaving the vehicle and sprinting toward the apartment complex. All of this happened shortly before the emergency call was made. It was evident now that the story had been carefully crafted, but not carefully enough. Detectives determined that the incident had been staged from the beginning, and as a result, the investigation was officially reclassified. What began as a search for a missing child had now become a homicide case. Because apparently, some lies really do come with a return receipt. Ruben was later charged with aggravated manslaughter involving a child. Investigators reviewed the data from his phone and uncovered a message exchange just hours before Lonzie had been reported missing. A friend had casually asked what his plans were for the evening, and Ruben had responded that he was simply relaxing at home. This, however, didn't match the evidence. Location tracking placed him at multiple spots: a fast food place, a laundromat, a gas station, and then back at the apartment. Later that night, around midnight on July 23rd, a potential buyer reached out to arrange a transaction. Ruben agreed to meet, But after that message, he suddenly stopped responding altogether. From that point on, his phone remained inactive until 2:20 a.m., when a call was placed to emergency services. The gap in communication raised even more questions, especially considering how unusually quiet he had become for someone who typically replied quickly. Though the mounting evidence pointed strongly in his direction, Reuben chose not to offer any explanations. Instead, he invoked his right to legal counsel. With little progress being made on that front, attention turned to Lana. During questioning, she told investigators that Lonzie had been fine when she left for work that evening. Her belief was that something tragic may have happened while she was away, that the child might have come into contact with Reuben's substances while unsupervised. A heartbreaking theory, and one that could have been prevented, if only basic parenting had been part of the evening's to-do list, somewhere between the gas station and McNuggets. While speaking further with investigators, Lana revealed that tensions had flared between her and Reuben shortly before she left for work that night. The argument, she explained, had been sparked by something deeply concerning. She had noticed marks on Lonzie's body and questioned Reuben about them. The child had also seemed unusually tired and had been vomiting earlier in the day. According to Lana, Reuben brushed off her concerns, claiming he had already informed her about the incident that caused, which he said happened the day before. Regardless of what had or hadn't been discussed, Lana still chose to leave the children in his care that evening. During the interview, she reflected on the exchange. Reuben's response, she noted, felt dismissive, insisting he had already explained the situation, even though she couldn't recall ever hearing it before. Since he had been the only adult present at the time, she admitted it left her feeling uneasy. In her words, her next step would have been to seek clarity through a professional opinion. She said she had considered taking Lonzie to a doctor, hoping that a medical explanation would help determine whether something serious had happened, or if perhaps it could have been a harmless cause like an infection. Her thinking, she explained, had been that a doctor's insight would guide her decision. If the injuries had turned out to be from something more serious, she believed that would have been the moment she walked away from Reuben for good. Sadly, it appears that moment came one day too late, because trusting someone to act like a parent doesn't always mean they know how. As detectives continued combing through digital evidence, they uncovered a series of images on Reuben's phone that he had unsuccessfully attempted to erase. These photos provided a troubling glimpse into what Lonzie may have endured in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. In one picture, the child appeared to have visible bruising near his ear, along with signs of fluid discharge. This discovery strongly indicated that Lana may have been aware something was wrong, yet still left both of her children in Reuben's care.
Additional support for this assumption came from one of Reuben's acquaintances, who had privately expressed concern for the child. She recalled noticing that Lonzie had several unexplained marks. His condition, she said, reminded her of someone who might have taken a bad fall. She also mentioned that he had been walking with a noticeable limp, as if something was bothering his leg. Then, on August 18, 2015, Lana herself was taken into custody. She was officially charged with neglect and for not being truthful during the investigation. However, within just a few days, she posted a $50,000 bond and was released. What followed was an unexpected turn. Lana reconnected with her former husband, Christopher, and together they began preparing for a custody battle over their daughter, Lily. Because nothing says fresh start quite like a courtroom and joint legal strategy. Following a custody hearing where the judge had firmly advised both parents to make better life choices and stay on the right path, Lana and Christopher unfortunately took a different direction. Instead of following the court's advice, they went to a nearby motel where they engaged in behavior that directly violated the judge's warning. Unbeknownst to them, a confidential informant was present during this time and later reported the incident to authorities. As a result, Christopher was sentenced to 3 years, while Lana received 7. During the same period, Lonzie's older sister, Lily, had been speaking with investigators. Initially, she expressed guilt, telling them she believed her brother had disappeared because she left him alone in the car. But by mid-August, her version changed. In a moment of emotional vulnerability, she told a teacher something far more serious, that her baby brother was gone and that something terrible had happened to him in the woods. The teacher immediately reported this to law enforcement, and search efforts were launched in nearby wooded areas. Despite their best efforts, no physical evidence was located at that time. Then, in January of 2016, Lana entered a plea agreement with prosecutors. She admitted responsibility for leaving her children in an unsafe situation and for not being forthcoming with investigators. In return for agreeing to testify at Reuben's trial, she received a 5-year sentence. This was on top of the 7 years already handed down for her earlier charges. A tough chapter, but perhaps not the kind of teamwork the judge had in mind when suggesting they work together for their child's future. Before the case ever reached trial, Reuben decided to take a plea deal. As part of his agreement, he told authorities that Lonzie had passed away and claimed that Lana had been aware of the situation all along. According to his version, the morning of the 23rd involved both adults being distracted, while Lonzie was left unsupervised in the bathroom. He stated that the child had drowned while unattended, and in a moment of panic, he chose to quietly remove any evidence and conceal what had happened. However, the details in his account didn't seem to align with the physical evidence. Traces linked to Lonzie were discovered on Reuben's clothing and in different parts of the apartment, including on fabric surfaces. Surveillance footage from a nearby business also showed Reuben at a laundromat, washing a load of clothes, well before any missing person report had been made. Investigators also heard from Lonzie's 5-year-old sister, who shared that during their visit to the laundromat, her younger brother hadn't been with them in his car seat. She remembered the last time she saw him was earlier that evening, around 8 p.m. And finally, one more unsettling detail emerged. Reuben's own mother had confided to child welfare officials that her son had recently made a disturbing comment. He said he could understand why some people feel so overwhelmed by parenting that they completely lose control. Perhaps not exactly the kind of insight one hopes to hear from someone caring for children. After giving his account to investigators, Reuben took authorities to a remote patch of land tucked behind State Road 9B, just south of Bayard. The location was thick with weeds and brush, a forgotten space where time seemed to stand still. Hidden beneath a stack of discarded tires, the search ended with the heartbreaking discovery of 22-month-old Lonzie Barton. A medical review later found signs that the child had faced harm over time. Due to the condition in which he was found, it wasn't possible to determine exactly what caused Lonzie's passing, though there were indications that something serious had occurred. In a heartbreaking twist, even in silence, his small presence seemed to carry the weight of a story left untold. Following the recovery of Lonzie's remains and Reuben's cooperation with authorities, he was handed a 20-year sentence for his role in the child's death. Additional time, 5 more years, was later added due to unrelated charges, shifting his release date to 2039. Whether that feels like justice served may depend on one's tolerance for leniency and irony. Lonzie's older sister, Lily, has since been placed in the care of her grandparents, where she is reported to be safe and thriving. After news of the discovery spread, the once quiet roadside near Bayard became a makeshift memorial. Visitors left behind small toys, soft animals, and gentle reminders that even short lives leave lasting echoes. A private service for Lonzie Barton was held on Tuesday, April 5, 2016, at Turner Cemetery in Glen Street, Mary, Florida. There were no cameras, no speeches, just family, silence, and a final goodbye that had taken far too long to arrive. This is a heartbreaking story of missed chances and broken trust. At just 2 years old, Lonzie Barton deserved safety and protection, but the adults in his life failed him in unimaginable ways. What makes this case so troubling isn't just what happened, but how many warning signs were ignored along the way. As we look at the facts, important questions emerge. How could this have been prevented? What responsibility do we all share in protecting vulnerable children? The legal outcomes in this case have left many wondering if justice was truly served. Cases like Lonzie's remind us why we need to pay attention to children's welfare in our communities. When we see signs that something might be wrong, speaking up could make all the difference. What are your thoughts on cases like this? How can we better protect children in vulnerable situations? Share your perspective in the comments below. If you found this discussion important, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing for more thoughtful coverage of cases that matter. Your engagement helps bring attention to these crucial issues.